What is more Christmassy and festive than a beautiful red poinsettia? I've been seeing these poinsettia wreaths everywhere, and this year I want to try making my own. So we're going to be trying making poinsettias out of red felt. Then once we have all our poinsettias made, I'm going to put them together and make a Christmas wreath. So let's get started. I'm using this piece of cardboard to make templates for my different petal sizes. I'm gonna make the first ones about 2.5 inches long. Okay, I'm actually gonna draw a line. Let's put a mark at 1.25. Then I think I want the widest part to be 1.25 inches. I'm putting that center line at just over 1/2 inch. Then we'll connect those dots. Now I'll cut out the first petal. I'm doing the same thing, but with some smaller petals. The next one is going to be 1.75 inches long. And the middle would be about there. Now I'm cutting out the next size. These will be the templates for one of our poinsettias with the bigger petal and then the smaller petal. Then I'm gonna make another template for a slightly smaller poinsettia. This one is going to be 2 inches long. Make a mark at 1 inch and then mark there and mark here. This just gives a good guide so the two sides are somewhat the same. Now for the smallest petal, let's make this one 1.5 inches long. We'll draw a line down to 1.5 with a mark at 0.75. And then for the width, let's make it maybe 1 inch wide. So I'll put that center point at the 1/2 inch mark and do a mark at 0 and 1. Then connect all the points. Now I'm going to trace a bunch of these petals onto the felt. You could also cut this out with your Cricut if you have one. I just didn't feel like doing that today, but it would be a lot faster. Let's do a row of the smaller petals now. I'm trying to put them fairly close together because I don't want to waste a lot of the felt. I just got this felt at Michael's this morning because I got the idea for this last night, so that was the quickest way for me to get some felt. I think they were 69 cents a sheet, and we're gonna be able to get a lot of petals from one sheet. I'm using my Fiskars fabric scissors to cut out all of these petals. These cut felt so nicely. This is definitely time consuming, but it's quite relaxing actually, just cutting out all of these shapes. And especially using these scissors, it's so easy. So you could just be doing this, listening to a podcast or watching a show. Or if you're crafting along with me right now, then we can cut out all these petals together. Let me know in the comments if you have started your Christmas shopping yet. I know a lot of people start super early and then other people are more last minute. I've gotten, I think, 1 gift so far. I feel like end of November is actually a really good time to get all your Christmas presents because of the Black Friday sales. I'd also love to know if you're making any gifts for people this year. That is the kind of thing that you do have to plan farther in advance, depending on what it is you're making or how many you're making. I always think that would be so fun to make gifts for people. So if you are doing that, leave all of your ideas down below. I think people appreciate that kind of a thing so much because there's so much thought and time that goes into it. I'm gonna make sure I keep the sizes in separate piles just to keep it a little bit more organized. These petals are actually kind of looking like Christmas lights. That could be a fun craft to do, making a string of felt Christmas lights. I'm gonna finish cutting this row out, then come back to you. I've got my 2 piles of the 2 largest sizes of poinsettia petals. Now we'll move on to the smaller sizes. I've traced out the 2 smaller sizes of petals and now I'm going to cut them out. I'm gonna make my first poinsettia. So I have the largest petals here, and the base is going to have 5 petals. I think that looks good. Now I'm taking my hot glue gun and adding a little bit of hot glue, pushing it down. There's the base of the poinsettia. Now I need 5 of the next size of petal, and I'll put these ones aside for now. For this layer of petals, I'm going to add a dab of hot glue at the bottom, then pinch it together so we get that 3D look. I'm holding that for a few seconds to set it in place. Here are a couple of the petals. Now let's glue the next layer onto the poinsettia. These smaller petals are going in between each of the larger petals that we already have on there. Now I'm gluing down each of these. See how cute that's looking? I love it. Next, I'm gonna make one of the smaller sizes of poinsettias. So we'll need 5 of these petals and then 5 of the smallest ones. Again, I'm arranging these like that, and then I'll glue them together. That's the first layer done. Then for the next layer, we are adding the glue at the ends and pinching them together. Now we can add our small petals on top. I put all of my poinsettias together. This is the larger size, and then this is the smaller size. And now I'm going to make the centers of the flowers. I'm using this dark brown felt, and I'm just gonna cut some tiny little circles. I'm not trying to make these perfect or the exact same size, just making them roughly the same, and then we can glue them to the center of the flowers. I think I'll do 3 circles per flower. This is definitely a tedious part of the process, but I think if you're okay with it being imperfect and just getting the general shape and size the same, then it'll be a lot easier. Now let's glue those on. I'm adding just a big dollop of hot glue in the center, and then sticking my 3 little circles on top. Now that I have all my felt poinsettias done, I'm going to arrange them on a wreath. I have a bunch of supplies here, including this wire wreath form and a bunch of various Christmassy greenery from Dollar Tree. And then I also have these little pine cones. We're gonna start putting it together and seeing what we can come up with. I'm gonna start cutting some of this greenery into smaller pieces so I can arrange it on my wreath and then figure out where I want everything to go. I'm just using my wire cutters and separating all of this. I have some greenery that's more natural looking, and then others that are more sparkly. I feel like it's nice to have a bit of a mix for Christmas time. What I like to do is gather a bunch of different things and then start arranging it on the wreath just to get an idea of how things are looking and what elements I might want to include. And this is definitely just the experimental stage where I'm putting anything and everything on the wreath, and it might look good or it might not. And that's totally okay, because sometimes you just don't know how things are gonna turn out until you give it a try. I have found that it's better to just go for it and not be afraid that it's not gonna look good. Because I've definitely been surprised before by how things turn out. Let's cut some of the branches off of this sparkly one. Part of me kind of likes the greenery that's not sparkly. Maybe I'll just use a couple of those. Another option is I have a bunch of these picks that are flocked, so they look kind of snowy, and I always love those. So maybe I'll add that in here. I think that could look really cute with the poinsettias on top. I just have my Christmas florals bin on the ground right beside me here. This is the one that mostly has greenery, white berries, a little bit of gold and silver. Maybe I'll take some of these out that have the white berries on it. They're pretty cute to mix in. To cover up the wire of the wreath, you could wrap it in burlap or ribbon. I'm gonna try and cover it solely with all of my greenery, and we'll see if we can do that. I think I have enough here to make a full looking wreath, because I obviously don't want any of the wire wreath form showing through. So in that way, it is easier to wrap it with something to cover it up. I'm gonna put on as much greenery as I can, and then I'll add on some pine cones, and then we'll, of course, add on the poinsettias. I have a lot of greenery on here now, and then I'm taking my felt poinsettias and I'm gonna place them around the wreath. I made 4 of the larger size and 4 of the smaller size. So I'm alternating those around the wreath. I'm going to start attaching all of the greenery to my wreath. I'm thinking I'm gonna attach everything with floral wire. Maybe I'll focus on one section at a time. Let's start with this side. These 2 pieces of greenery don't necessarily match the exact vibe that we're going with for this wreath, but they will still be useful for the back layer as extra coverage of the wire. I think what I'm gonna do is make bundles of greenery, and then we can always use hot glue if needed. Let's get our floral wire and cut off a piece. Starting with this bundle here, I'm taking my wire and wrapping it around the stems. I want to keep the wire as hidden as possible, so I'm keeping it down low. And then if there are any stems that are not long enough, then I can just glue them to the back here. Wrapping the wire around. Then I'm adding a bit of hot glue to the back and sticking this piece back there. Then I'll take another piece of wire and attach this bundle of greenery to the outer ring of the wreath. I think that worked pretty well. Now let's carry on for the next section. This is going to be all about layering and creating that really full look. Okay, let's see how much of that we can get in one bundle. It's easier to tell if you turn them over, then you can see the stems better of where your floral wire needs to go. Then we wanted these ones at the back. I'm gonna attach this one separately with some wire. Let's hot glue this little piece and tuck it in back here. Oh, we still had this piece. I wonder if that would be better tucked in the back here. That's quite cute. I'll tie this one on down here. And then we need something else back here. So we'll get another piece of wire and tie this on. Then one thing I'm finding is these leaves don't like to stay in place, and I want them to be facing out. So I'm gonna add a little bit of hot glue to this piece of greenery and then lightly push the leaf onto there so that it stays facing the right way. And then same with this leaf. See how it's turning like that? I'm gonna add a little bit of glue to the side of the leaf and then tuck it back there. So it still has movement, but it's facing the right way now. I was a little worried how I was gonna attach all of these to the wreath because it can be quite difficult sometimes. But I'm actually really liking this method. I think it's a little bit tedious and time consuming, but I think it's working really well. I definitely find that the pieces of greenery that are quite short are just easier to glue. And then the pieces with the longer stems, you can tie the wire around. Sometimes turning it over makes it easier to see where you need to add some wire to hold things in place. Like I can see there's a few stems here that need to be held down. So I'm gonna wrap my wire around them. Oh, see, the wire does work so much better than the glue. This is the piece I tried to hot glue onto the wire and it just doesn't stick very well because it's such a small space. I think it's actually easier to add glue to the front and then tuck it in and stick it to things in front of it. Moving on to the bottom section now. Let's start with that bundle. Let me know if you are making a wreath right now too. That could be so fun to get your supplies and we could make some Christmas wreaths together, like a little crafting session. I always think it's fun when people have the same or similar supplies and to see how different their projects turn out. It's so fun to get ideas from other people or just craft alongside your friends. So let us know in the comments if you are making anything, what you're making right now, and then maybe we can have like a little crafting community where we make Christmas wreaths and crafts at the same time. This is the kind of thing where it's not hard to make, but I still think it's fun to watch other people do it, even if it's just for keeping you company or giving you some inspiration for your own crafts. This bundle is popping up a little bit too much here, so I'm gonna take a piece of wire and try to discreetly tie it down, kind of bend the rest and form it into place. I think this one will work better in the back over here. Let's add a little bit of hot glue to the front and then tuck that back here and press it in place. Now that's one side of the wreath done. When I'm moving on to the next side, I'm going to start at the top again and arrange my greenery facing the other way. I really like that all of these picks are wired, so you can easily bend them which way you need them to go. Let's take this bundle and attach it together. Once we add the poinsettias and the pine cones all on here, then we can really see what greenery we need to add or spaces we need to fill. I'm trying to just get a really good base going and then we can make adjustments as we go. I'm going to take advantage of this thicker stem and put some hot glue on there. Then attach this little piece of greenery right over top. I can see we need something else back here, so I'll take this flocked branch, or maybe this one, or maybe both, and stuff them in there. That looks good. Now we just need to figure out how to attach them. This is the stem of the flocked branch. I'm going to tuck it into this bundle, and then this one is going to need to be glued. So I'll put the glue on the front, and then tuck it in. That's looking quite full. Now let's keep going. I'm using so much more greenery than I thought I would, but it really takes a lot to cover the wire and get this nice full look. I still have this branch with all the leaves too. Then I can tuck in. I'm going to start with tying these two together loosely, and then let's see if we can use the same wire for this. Tying that bundle onto the wreath. I'm going to use a couple of these spare leaves to tuck in and fill out the background a little bit. Now that most of the sides are done, I'm going to work on the bottom. So I have a few more greenery pieces that I'm going to arrange down here. That's looking pretty good. I'm going to start with getting a piece of wire, and then I'm just going to start tying things down. For these last parts, I'm just adding some glue and tucking things in to fill in some of the gaps. Now that most of the wreath is covered, let's go back to the poinsettias and place them where they're going to go. I'm loving this so much now. Those red poinsettias really add such a fun pop of color. Let's add our hot glue to the back of the poinsettia. Then carefully push it onto those leaves. Next, let's do these two smaller poinsettias. Now we can go through and make any little adjustments with the glue or adding in any more greenery that needs to be added in. I also want to make sure everything is securely attached. I finished putting all the greenery and poinsettias on my wreath, though every time I look at it, I'm seeing spots where I could add more greenery. But I think for right now, I'm gonna leave it like this and then get my pine cones. This will also help to fill in any gaps. I'm just putting hot glue on the bottom of the pine cone and then pushing it onto the wreath. That looks quite cute. My poinsettias are very methodically placed in a pattern, so I think I want to do something different with the pine cones, just make it a little bit more random. We'll see how that goes. Sometimes I have that intention and then I can't help but do it in a certain way. I'm using pine cones that I got from the dollar store that came on a strand, and I'm just cutting off each individual pine cone. But of course you could also use regular pine cones you find outside. I have lots of those too, but I liked how these ones were quite small. I thought they worked well for this wreath. I think it's fun to switch up the placement of the pine cones a little bit. So some of them are more on the outer edge of the wreath and some are more toward the middle. Some you can see a little bit more and some are tucked in with the greenery more. I have this jute cord I'm going to use to make a wreath hanger. I don't want it to be too long. Cut this. Easier said than done. Ah, the wire cutters worked. I'm turning the wreath over. Then I think I'll just tie this onto the outer ring. I think I'm going to put a little bit of hot glue to help keep the twine in place because it was kind of sliding around a little bit. I keep finding little bits of greenery that I had just tucked into the wreath without properly securing down. Let's go hang this up and see how it looks. Thank you so much for watching this video. I loved making those felt poinsettias and adding them to the wreath. It was so much fun. I also really want to try making poinsettias with cardstock, so let me know in the comments if you would want to see that. Subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up if you love Christmas DIYs, and I'll see you next time.